friends, this is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolf pack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes, sharing our experiences on a ton of different topics, in hopes we get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals, no one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Be Real Babe podcast. I am your host, Brandy, and with me is my beautiful co-host, Kayla.
Hey girl.
And we are here today in episode 3. I can't even believe it. We are so excited to bring you this episode, guys. We hope that you enjoyed the last 2 episodes getting to know your girls. And this one, we're going to start diving right into shit. So what are we diving into today, Kayla? Tell them.
Body dysmorphia, because It is something that everybody at some point in their tender life has had an issue with.
100%. And even if we're going to the degree, where we were just talking about that, you might not, let's say, be clinically diagnosed with body dysmorphia, but we could say that I would say probably 90% of the people that I talk to, which we're going to dive into a little bit sooner about the percentages on a poll that I did of my own peers, 90% of the people I know suffer some way or maybe are unaware that they suffer. And you can just kind of tell by the way that they talk or they, kind of present themselves that they do have some issues at some point in time in their life with something about their body. So we thought that would be one of the best first ones to bring up today or for the podcast.
Yeah, totally. Because it doesn't get much more real than that. Hey,
no, absolutely not. And I think it's blah, 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 good start. It's for everybody. And I think everybody of all sizes and different perspectives and different ways have issues with this. Like we can talk about all the different things that we've heard. Like, for example, body dysmorphia or image isn't necessarily just about your size, which is a big one, your stomach size, your size of your muscles, the size of, let's say, your boobs, your ass, guys worry about the size of their dick. I don't know, maybe girls worry about the size of their asshole. I'm not going to judge. I don't, but maybe they do, so many different things outside of just like being skinny or let's say large. There's things like the size of everything, like, tons of different things people have issues with as to their body image, not just as an obesity or let's say anorexic spectrum.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100%. There's so much more to it that it's because I feel like what it is the things that this people have picked out, let's say your teeth or your smile. Those are things that they've either felt insecure about, had someone call them out on, or say something derogatory about that feature. And then that is when it becomes an obsessive thing. And like, I think that's big part of the dysmorphia is once you begin to obsess about it. And it's like, it's so easy to get caught up in that train, man.
It is so easy. And it can be little things, and then I was talking a while ago, some people at work a couple of weeks ago, and, they were like, well, I don't suffer any from body dysmorphia. I'm like, well, totally. That's awesome. That's amazing. I was like, for sometimes it's not just my body. It's for things like my acne. I've struggled with acne. And I know you said you haven't had to deal with that, which is thank goodness. But a lot of people still in your 30s, you're dealing with acne, and like, then you start
adult acne
or hormonal acne, or, just from your diet and like you said, like your smile, there's things like you could be insecure about your hair. Like I know sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, wow, I have no hair. It's not thick. I feel like I look like a boy. And then I, look at girls with all these like thick, luscious locks.
Luscious,
like,
yeah.
All of you. Fuck all
I
of
get
you
that.
and your beautiful hair, So, and then let's go to the flip side where, we're going to dive deep into fitness, where we're looking at the size of our muscles. And it's not just, it's all of that, your style. Like, I know there's some people that are like, oh, I wish I could just wear that, like, like you do. And I'm like, well, sometimes you just have to own it, right? Just do it. Yeah. Or like your hygiene. Like some people always, I know there's some people that have had weird things happen with their bodies where they were like producing this weird body odor that they couldn't get rid of. And they're really insecure about that, So there's so many things, like even down to things like your toenails. Like growing up, I had kind of like a fungus in my toenail. So it made it really thick. And I had people comment on that. And it was just like
so
such
weird.
a wild, it's so weird. It's like, why do you care what my toes look
Why are
like?
you
And then now I'm
looking?
like, why do I care what my toes look like? And now that's all I can think about are my toes,
Yes, girl, I hear
right?
you. I hear you.
And so that leads us into kind of how we wanted to bring up, like, guys, like we said, we're not by any means doctors, psychologists, anything like that. We're just talking on our experiences with body image and body dysmorphia, but just to give you guys an idea of what, like, we'll say more clinically what definition of body dysmorphia disorder, so we call that BDD. We thought we kind of put a little blurb into here to kind of explain what it is, let's say on a clinical level. So let's say this was from Wikipedia, so as good as that is saying that body dysmorphic disorder, occasionally still called, okay, I'm going to butcher this here, Kayla, you say it, dysmorphophobia.
Dysmorphophobia. Dysmorphophobia.
Dysmorphophobia, there you go. See, definitely not
Boom.
a doctor. Is a mental disorder characterized by the obsessive idea that some aspects of one's own body part or appearance is severely flawed and therefore warrants exceptional measures to hide or fix it. So that could be in one, the BDD's delusional measures. Sorry, in BDD delusional variant, the flaw is imagined. So either it's a made up flaw in their mind or our minds,
Mm-hmm.
or if the flaw is actual, its importance is severely exaggerated. Either way, though, it's about pervasive and intrusive and may occupy several hours a day, causing several distresses and impairing one's otherwise normal activities. And that's where it's saying it can go into the obsessive compulsive spectrum, and it distinguishes from, and it is different from anorexia. It's, obviously all those things work together. You obviously, if you suffer with anorexia, there's going to be some attachments to the body dysmorphia, but just because you have some sort of body dysmorphia, it doesn't mean that
You'll
you're
have
necessarily
anorexia. Yeah.
anorexic.
Yeah.
Yes,
Totally.
because obviously all sizes and all, ages and all sorts, variations. So it's kind of more on a bigger spectrum of than anorexia. So I thought that was a really interesting thing, because even though we might not be clinically diagnosed, I think all of us can definitely say that we've either imagined a flaw on our body at one point in our time, and if that necessarily flaw exists, especially in the fitness industry, or just anywhere actually, but in, I think, today's day and age, is extremely exaggerated. Like, why do I care that my nose is bigger than someone else? Does that change who I am as a person? Absolutely fucking not.
No. Fuck no. Absolutely no.
So that's just giving you guys an idea of what, let's say, Wikipedia is going to say body dysmorphia, so BDD is. So not saying everybody has this disorder by any means, but I think a lot of people have dealt with the enablements of this disease. And I think it's super important that all the resources and influencers out there that help with that. I think even if you're not like clinical, if you're suffering with any sort of these thoughts, these influencers, these people, these resources for people with BDD are only going to, I think, help.
Totally.
And that kind of brings us into, we're going to post this week a lot. And every time we have a topic, guys, we're going to share pages and people that we find inspirational, that we follow, that we think is deserving a like. So, Kayla, why don't you give us some of the people that you find on Instagram? Before we get into this, before we lose you guys, the most important thing is we want you guys to take things away from this episode. So before we start talking about the poll answers of how other people are feeling about body images and how we've dealt with it, we're going to give you a list of some of our influencers that we follow on social media that we think are worth it to help you. Before we lose you guys, at least take these people away and start following them immediately.
Yes, yes. No, because I mean, one of the biggest things about the body dysmorphia, and we'll also talk about a little bit later with me and Brandy, is just learning to rewire certain things in your mind. It really comes down to catching yourself and stopping the negative thought and then moving it into a different pattern. And so I find a lot that these people, I will go to these pages, these are coming up on my page daily, and I'm appreciative for that. So the first one, I'm going to butcher her name. She's majestic. Mick Zazone. And then I have Sarah Nicole Landry. I am also following a page called Sunday Morning View. It's a magazine that is for self-love magazine, that is real. A girl by the name of Sarah Collin, another one by the name of Ashley Bell, and then a page that I shared today personally with Brandy because she actually spoke about body dysmorphia, and it's called The Royal Codes. And those are mine. So Brandy, why don't we hear some from you?
I love that. And it's so crazy too, because I find that both me and you will send each other snapshots of the stuff that a lot of these influencers have said that were right in the moment. We're just like, it just kind of solidifies what we're doing and just makes it feel so much better. So to see that one today, just, talking about body image and how so many people suffer from it, but people don't talk about necessarily suffering of it. And there's a small group. So just kind of enforced us today to do that. So there's obviously a million, and we'll share more on our social platform. But just for right now, those that I find the most influencing, there's a girl, her name is Julia Ledbetter, and that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly her Instagram, Julia Ledbetter. And she actually does a podcast that she just launched called Embrace Your Real. And she is a like kind of an ex-fitness gal, and she really just helps you embrace your body and stuff like that. Both Kayla and I both very much love Nicole Arbour. She is someone that we both think that everyone should be following, even if you disagree with some things or don't. She definitely brings a lot of realness and understandings, and she's very, very intelligent and all about cheering people on. So definitely follow her. Another gal, Sarah Mans, the Fitness Lioness on Instagram. I found her learning about breast implant illness, and she was going through her removing her explants. And so obviously on that journey, she's done a lot of like self-love. She's just really great at embracing who she is in her body. And I love that. Same with her friend, Devin Day. She's definitely more like a sex positive, love your body type of gal, which I love. I need more in my life, as well as Laura Hesp. I found her as well through the breast implant illness kind of movement. And I found those women, they were in the moments where they were just like, what the hell's wrong with me, figured it out, and have been embracing their bodies ever since. And every shape, from when they were like, super thin with the big boobs, to like when their bodies destroyed them, to now, like, it's just been amazing to watch them. So those are the top gals. And again, we'll share those guys so you can follow their pages. But if you're writing it down right now, those are our top people that we go to. And I think that's a super important thing, is to have people in your life that you can fall back to when you're feeling those ways, because until we can rework those patterns, until we can really get in better mindsets, there's going to be days where we fall back to those patterns. And the best thing that you can have is a bunch of cheerleaders with you, reminding you that, like, okay, your brain is, fucked up, you're good.
Yeah, no, the hype girls, the hype people, the hype fam.
Girls. Cheerleaders. And that's why I think we like Nicole Arbour the most, because she is a cheerleader for everybody. And that inspires us to cheer others, because when other people are winning, you feel like you're winning too, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I did a poll on my Facebook and Instagram. Now, obviously, I'm not a huge influencer, and I don't have a ton of people, but I do appreciate everyone that answered. It helps me a lot. And as we grow, I'm excited to redo this poll and see what other people think as we grow. But we thought what we do before we break in down to how we suffer with body images and kind of go back and forth with some questions here, that we would share some of the answers from the poll to give you guys an idea of what other people are kind of thinking, and we can kind of discuss that. So I'm going to pass it over to Kayla's going to do the questions, and then I will let you guys know what we gathered on Instagram and Facebook and what we kind of think about those results.
Alrighty, so let's just jump right into it. The first one is, do you suffer from body image issues?
So, of course, naturally, I wasn't shocked by the answers here. So some of these questions I did on Facebook and Instagram. This one was on both. There was 86% saying yes and 14% saying no. So that was both on Instagram and Facebook. So we're looking at about 15 to 20 people that answered. Obviously not, like I said, I'm not famous, so I don't have a huge platform.
Not yet.
But for my peers, though, that's kind of, I'm not exactly shocked by that.
Me neither. All right. So moving to the second question, if you do not suffer with body image issues, do you feel like you should?
Okay, so this one I asked because of a direct conversation. So Instagram said yes, 33%, and Facebook said 38% feel like they should. And Instagram was saying 67% no, and Facebook 62% no. So I thought that was really great. That's good, because I have a different, which we'll go into, but I definitely have a different answer to this, because I don't believe I generally had an issue with my body until I was kind of convinced that it needed to be an issue. Yeah. So I found that really interesting. Yeah.
No, and I like that. Honestly, just to touch quickly for that, I like that you said that, because that's also something that I think will become relatable to other people when, this gets launched and we're having an audience. And I think that's super important, because then maybe we'll have people just call in and say, well, you guys could have said this. And I just love that this is starting the conversation. So
yeah, absolutely. Because it's not, and I think too that every part of the conversation needs to have some showcase. So just because we're talking about body image issues and me and you have suffered from that and the majority have, doesn't mean that those that don't shouldn't have a platform or shouldn't talk about it, and how that has hurt them seeing people they know. And that's what I wanted to know. Do you feel guilty? Not necessarily do you feel like you should or feel guilty, but I know some people are like, I love my body, especially one girlfriend. She's like, I love my body. But I feel like because so many people have that issue that I should too then. And, there's some guilt with your self-love, which I think is what reversed my love for my body at a young age. Been like, well, I should hate it because everyone hates it because I have this.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll jump into that down the road. But I really want to make sure that every part of the conversation is here and not just how we
Yeah,
feel.
totally.
Sure.
I think that I need to get you to maybe possibly reword this third question, because it's still kind of, I kind of wanting to put it more, do you feel like you are pushed by society to have body issues? Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. I guess I should
Oh
answer.
my gosh. I was like, what's up? What?
See, you guys, we're working through this podcast. I'm not editing
No.
that. I'm just going to leave that in. That's me. That's right. I was just like so intrigued. Yes,
Butterflies.
go on. Do you feel? So, yeah. So the question, basically, I wrote it in two different places. So the idea is, do you feel like society pushes you to have issues? And Instagram said 100%, where Facebook had 91% saying yes and 9% saying no. So I think that, again, that's a huge topic that we're going to talk down the road, because there's so many industries that, whether people want to admit it or not, and yes, we can be guarded, are targeted for you to feel like shit about yourself, because they're not going to make money if you feel good about yourself.
Exactly. It's oh man, it's so backwards.
It's what we're going to open on another day, because that's a whole
That's
other
something
ballgame.
else.
But it goes to show how many people feel that way, right? So it's definitely not alone.
No, it's not. Not at all. Like not even, yeah, society. And so to back it up, even before like social media, as a child, like seeing magazines of women and not even knowing what airbrushing or photoshopping was, and just being sold on the idea that that's the ideal shape, that's what society says you should look like. It's like that, it goes back, like, and it starts far down the line. Yes, we'll get into that more, way more. But
oh, for sure. And the one thing to add to that too is, like, think about kids nowadays. Like, you had to have money to go buy those magazines, or you had to be on TV. Well, we weren't sitting at TV all the time, because usually you had like one TV and you had to hang out with your parents. And, okay, maybe rich people have more than one TV. Okay, fuck all of you, but just kidding. But there is people that, I definitely did. But for the majority now, every kid has a laptop,
cell phone,
iPhone,
iPad, something.
And it's free. So Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff is now being overloaded to these kids in their faces all the time, where it's like, okay, yeah, we shouldn't have to talk to this about children, but it's actually happening more and more. So things like this need to come out a little bit. Well, maybe not this one, because obviously we're cursing, but it needs to be out there more, and knowledge to these kids that this is it's okay to have acting and makeup and all that kind of stuff, but that's not also real life. There's got to be a balance of what reality
teach them
is,
that
right?
Teach them that there is another side to the card, and that it's important to understand the balance between both. Just because you wear makeup doesn't mean you are insecure. Some women do it just to be fire, and men do it just to be fire. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's just there has to be a balance. What we want to do is come out and say, like, our experiences have brought us to these places. And one of the places I've reached is that there is a balance. At first I was all, fuck these filters, man, they're fucked up. Now I'm like, okay, because I understand and I'm aware of it, I am not overusing it. I'm just aware, but I'm also still having fun. I'm not canceling it. I'm just going, okay, I need to rephrase the way I'm seeing this and the way it's affecting my mind. And that's basically what happens, right? And it's just like, okay, cool. Fuck cancel culture, because that's...
and that's how I felt about makeup too, because I was using makeup because I was insecure at a certain point. So then I just stopped wearing makeup altogether.
And it's an extreme.
And then now it's like, and then it was an extreme. So now I'm like, well, you can do it. Like, I'm not going to do this extreme makeup every day, but I want to learn how to do it. So then when I do have those moments or whatever, I can. But that's kind of, I think, I'm excited to dive more into
definitely. All right. So we'll keep her on track here. I'm going to go into our next one.
We're going to
Yeah,
try, guys, to always stay on track,
always.
but we're
We
always
can
going to veer a little
ramble.
bit. But the next one, I actually really have another note I want to talk about for the
Awesome.
next
Okay,
question
so
too.
the next question is, what is your area of most grief?
So this one I put on Instagram only because Facebook doesn't have the options to answer questions. So there's 4 different answers: mid and lower section, face, overall appearance, and upper body. So mid and lower section was the highest with 5 people. The overall appearance was 3, upper body was 2, and face was 1. Now, if I had to answer, I would also say my face. But I'm going to say that majority of the people that answered were female. And that makes total sense of why it's mid and lower sections, because as females, that is where we hold more of our weight, usually due to our
Yep.
hormones. So women, and obviously guys, you can see them work their legs and all of a sudden they get a booty and you're like, what the fuck? And it takes women so long. But that's, generally, obviously we can't spot train, but I feel like that's where our fat holds hormonally. So for even like just, and I'm talking my personal, so, but it just makes sense that a lot of women say that area, because that's, I think, where most people have the issues, because that's where most people, let's say, gain
Yeah,
their weight
totally.
first, or they notice the most.
It's where it hangs, totally, like
So,
that. And honestly, this is gonna be, I hate that this is coming out of my mouth right now, but as a girl growing up, that was something that I heard from my mom too. It's like,
yeah.
she'd see you'd be going and trying on clothes and she'd just say things like, and I love her dearly. So like this is nothing against anything. It's just like to bring a reality to it.
No.
She would say things like, oh, it's just my fluff or whatever. Like, and just like, and she would be open
Yeah.
and honest about how like women do carry there and like it is a problem and we do lose weight like slower than men. And I mean, it is what it is, but it's like, it's a reality. It's out there. And I agree. I do think most of these, if not all of them, were women that said mid to lower section, because that's mine. That would be the one I'd tick off.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. So I thought that one was not necessarily interesting, but it kind of makes sense into that. And it's, yeah, definitely not alone. So for me though, like definitely, obviously my body wise, that's where it would be, but I would struggle more. I think that's where my body, well, we'll get into where my body dysmorphia issues
Yes,
are.
we will dive right into it.
Next.
All
Couple more
right. All
questions and
right.
we'll get into those juicy things.
So the next one is, do you feel if social media didn't exist, would you still suffer from it?
Right. So the answers were yes, no, hard to say, and most likely. So yes and no were tied, 4 and 4, and one said hard to say. My answer was most likely. I feel like regardless of if there's social media or not, those issues would be there because they don't root in social media. They definitely have been highlighted, and we don't have precedent and people above us necessarily trained to know how to handle that psychologically and mentally yet. So therefore, we were kind of a part of a generation that had no idea what the effects of social media were going to be. And we see the generation after us like kind of suffering and then turning that around now,
Yeah,
in my
no,
opinion.
and I think too, like what was it if the social media didn't exist? I know for sure, like when I got pregnant,
Yeah.
social media, like after my 20s, social media was a huge thing. And I'm glad, honestly, so freaking glad that it wasn't as big when I went to high school. Because I can't imagine like how I would be
Yes.
now, like how much more work I would have to do internally to unwire all that crap. Because
100%.
it like in my 20s, it was like I got pregnant. I was just like, oh, I have to look this way and then I have to look that way. And if I don't go back to my body, and then my body never went back the way it was supposed to, because like stretch marks in life, I grew a fucking human. So
Yep.
I,
Yeah,
but it's
totally.
Instagram.
But like should go to what
Yeah,
standard
Instagram
though,
made it
right?
so
Like
weird.
should go back to. It is very weird. I totally agree with that. So, and then that's like you said, it came around when you were a mom, so that messed you up. So in that aspect, thinking, oh, when it's a teenager, like my goodness, like for me, it came in literally when I was already graduated high school. So there was chat rooms,
Yeah,
but there
you
was no
couldn't like
social media
see.
posting
Yeah,
stuff.
it was like Twitter was
Yep.
super
It was
new.
just chatting. Yeah. And that was about it. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm glad that we're equipped a little bit better to possibly help the next generation. Hence the
Yes,
podcast.
yes, we want to build a community.
Oh, the next, yes. And the next question actually kind of breaks my
Oh
heart
my
a little
God,
bit.
yeah. Okay. So we're gonna just get over this one quickly. Yeah. Has
No.
anyone ever
Yeah.
made a comment about your body to you?
So in this one, Instagram said 88% yes, and Facebook 80% said yes. And on Instagram, 12% said no, and Facebook 20% said no. So majority of people have had a comment. I guess I should have said what we should have on the original question. It was a negative comment.
Okay.
So obviously people get compliments, but this was to a negative comment about your body, or that you took it negatively. So I think, again, that's very not interesting and not shocking that majority of people have had a negative comment about their body, which I found is wild, because why the fuck are we commenting on other people's
Right.
bodies? I've been guilty of myself. I'm not going to say I've not been a
No, I have
judgmental or
to.
crazy bitch at points in my life, for sure. But I think it's recognizing and changing that. And I don't think I've ever made those comments out
No,
loud to
and like,
people.
yeah, exactly. It's like, it's one thing to think it. And that was one thing where I was just like, after a while, dude, it just felt like it was making me ill to my insides, that I was constantly feeling insecure and judging people and making comments about them. And it was just like, we're at this point now, like, why can't we just celebrate them? Like, why I'm beautiful,
Yep.
why can't she be beautiful? Or he's good looking, why can't
Yep.
he be good looking? Like, why can't we all
It doesn't
win?
take it away from someone else. Yeah, why can't we all have a piece of that pie, and in different ways, right? And it's like, just because someone else is shining bright doesn't take your
No.
shine away. And I don't know where that came from or why that's a thing, but it's definitely a thing I think
Comparing.
we all feel. It's like, yeah. And so for myself, what I started doing this last year, is what I watched and or what I've read. It was like, if you're judging and you're looking at something from somebody else, and obviously they have something you're lacking, and that's where your judgment
Mm,
is coming from. So instead of looking at what they have and what you don't, and you being lacking, be inspired and try to figure out how they got what you want, and so therefore you can have it. And I think that that's one of the nicest reworking patterns that I've been trying to work. It's just been like, immediately, if it's first like, oh my God, look at her for that, I'm like, okay, bitch, why the
why does
fuck
this
did you
bother
just
you?
say that? Why did you just think that? What did you miss? Oh, because she's super confident and she looks like she's having a good time. Well, you're jealous because you're not super confident. So maybe you need to deal with that instead of
Love
projecting
it.
that onto her.
Love
I
it.
mean, yeah, that's something that goes in your head and you have to repattern it, but
Mm-mm.
it blows my
Love
mind
it.
that people actually fucking say that out loud to
Oh, the
people. Like,
audacity,
come on.
right? Like, not even
Yeah.
so, for one thing, like, because Brandy and I are into the fitness life. We have had our ups and downs and our own journeys inside out with it. But like, in the fitness industry, it is next level savage.
Wild. It's wild what people get away with. And it's actually like fitness industry slash COVID slash, or sorry, the clap slash, where people are getting really cocky to say things
Yeah.
over social media, but
Warriors.
wouldn't say those kind of comments to your face. I'm going to maybe another follow up poll, because I know we want to do this again. Another follow up poll be like, if you said yes, how much was this to your actual face
Yeah.
or
Another
to
way.
you
Yeah.
on the internet? Because I've been, right? Because that's very curious, is like, how cocky are people? Like, would they say that to your face?
No, right?
Probably
It's been wild.
not.
And we'll go our
Right.
last one. Yeah, next
Next
question.
question. Two
Uh,
more. Two more, I
we
think. Yeah, three
have,
more.
do you feel like there are resources to help you deal with these patterns?
So this is really interesting. So let's answer this one, and then we'll skip to the one after, and we'll do the scale last. Just because I found this really interesting. So when we proposed this question, if you feel like there's resources to help deal with these patterns, Instagram only said 89% said yes, and 11% said no, which I find really interesting, because just reading the next
Yeah.
question I had posted.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I
Go
just
ahead,
was
Sheila.
like, blah, blah.
That's okay.
Do you have, so yeah, the
I
next
know.
one is tying into the other one. Do you have resources or tips to help other people?
So Instagram said 75% no and 25% yes. So I found this really interesting, because it was saying the majority of people feel like there is resources, but when asked what these resources was, only 25% of people felt that they could either share it or it was useful. So I'm very curious to dive deeper in this and open these conversations when we launch this and when we do this. Why is it, like, just curious, and then not judgment, but is it because you don't feel like the people that you follow or the resources you have, or you like, do you feel that they're unique to you? Do you feel that, maybe what you're believing works for you isn't going to work for other people? Or is it just simply something you don't want to share? Or is it the unpopular opinion that maybe there isn't that many resources out there, you're just saying there is, so you feel supported in it, and then don't have to
Yeah,
open
no,
that
totally.
box up,
That's a fair question, honestly.
right? And I don't mean that like any sense, because I do the same thing. Like, oh, I absolutely know. Like, I know why I can't get, let's say, these abs, because I know what my eating problems are that are preventing me. I know that that's what my problem is, but I
Yeah,
just don't do
no, fair.
it. Right? So it's just kind of like one of those things where it's like, yeah, there's resources for me to have healthy food, but I'm just not doing it. So it's great that there's resources. I guess the next question, how many people are using those resources effectively to solve those problems? So I thought that was really interesting. And that's what led to us giving some resources, and why we're going to be giving resources following this week as well, to kind of give you guys help on what we find is useful. So that was our little Instagram and Facebook poll, and I'm very excited to do that again down the road when we grow and come back to this and maybe dive deeper into those questions and really open up those cans a little bit more. So look at us just acting like professionals halfway through, about like almost half an hour.
Not too shabby.
Let's go. So I guess we can then take it into the next portion, guys. So when we created this podcast, what we wanted to make sure to do was to, kind of give a general consensus of what other people were feeling, and then break it down and show you guys what it is how we deal with it, and being open and honest on how these topics affect us. So the next portion, Kayla's going to kind of interview me about my issues with body image, and then I'm going to flip it around and ask her the exact same questions, and kind of give you guys an idea of what we deal with things and how we go about that. Or, in small part, body image is huge. It's not going to be something that's going to happen in one episode and crammed into 1 hour. This is going to be a big one, but
you have to get the ball rolling somehow. And this is, like we said, we're just getting the conversation started and opening up the floor.
Tune in for part 2 to hear what the babes have to say about their body image issues.